We're live. Thank you, sir. All right. Welcome, everyone. It's Thursday, February 8th, and this is our second set of board meetings for the year. We have 4 of our public authorities that are going to be meeting this morning. I'm going to start with the Glens Falls Industrial Development Agency. Then we'll move to the Civic Development Corporation, the Urban Renewal Agency, and the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation. And so those are the 4 authorities that will be meeting today. And I'll start off with the Glens Falls IDA. This is, we have a full quorum here today.
Yeah.
Everybody is here. All our board members are here.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining us. And we also have several key staff and advisors, including Jeff Flagg and Suzanne Scott. Our attorney, Kara Leas, who's also providing us with office space. Thank you, Kara. Our CFO, Mark Toomey, is away this week, and so he is not here, but we do have his reports. Let me just start with a very brief CEO report, and then I'll turn it over to Jeff. I just want to remind everyone that next month in March is our annual meetings. There's a lot of additional documents and procedures that we go through as part of our annual meeting. Jeff will have a report for us as well at that time, and kind of summarize what we have accomplished over the past year and what we're looking forward to in the coming year. Because of some delay in getting our audits done, and it's critical that our audits be done in time to report to the ABO. We are going to move our annual meeting date to the end of the month. And so you'll see here that we're recommending Thursday, March 28th at 8 o'clock in the morning. And all 4 of the boards would meet at that time. And so they would be annual meetings and then monthly meetings if we needed them. And so if anyone has any issues with those dates, please let me know and let the mayor know, and we could reconsider something else, but that's our preferred date to move it to, given those audits. Okay.
That's in addition to the earlier Thursday?
No, so
In place of?
In
so
place
it's in
of.
place of, sorry, yes, in place of, so that would be
Thursday.
unless there was some emergency that came up, or we would have a special meeting or an emergency meeting, but I don't anticipate that and don't expect that. All right, so let me turn it over to Jeff for our CEO report. Jeff?
Yeah. Okay, just to let you know where things are. You know, there's been, as you know, sort of we look at and we go through the audits, we'll find that the IDA has been fairly quiet for the last year or so. Obviously, a lot of this is driven by the economy. Really, this has sort of started since, well, I would say there's been a lot of activity. There hasn't been a lot of productivity, right? And I think a lot of this is driven by the fact that, you know, since mid-2022, right, when interest rates started to climb and prices started to climb at the same time, you know, we've had a lot of developers, building purchasers who've sort of, approached the IDA about support. In almost every case, the problem has been that they've needed additional help. Right? They need this kind of tax credit, they need that kind of grant, they need different kinds of support. People are all chasing after the same money in some cases, so it's been difficult. Although we sort of lined up several projects, I won't detail them, but there's probably a half a dozen different projects that have sort of, approached the city or the IDA about tax support in particular. So, it's interesting because things are beginning to loosen up, although I don't know if anyone else, you've seen the recent economic, the national economic indicators. Despite the economists' claim that I think a year ago, the estimates were from economists that we had a 100% chance of a recession, demonstrating why economics has been described as the dismal science. We seem to have avoided that recession, but the U.S. GDP climbed at a 3.1% last year, which was the top of the developing world. And as a result of that, there seems to be a little bit of a pause because a lot of people were sort of baking in interest rate decreases, which may not be coming as soon as people were hoping for. So I think it might be sort of a resettling into a position. But I've had three developers in the last week, I don't know, 2 weeks, who've actually approached about projects and to see if there's still, the possibility of getting some support from the IDA, depending on the project. One issue that we might want to talk about, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but it depends on where the evolution of IDA support goes, is this whole issue of housing. In many cases, a lot of the projects that people are looking at are not only, if they do have a non-residential component, it seems to be how can I put this euphemistically, a token. We have a large project, and do we have to put some commercial in there in order to, for this project to qualify? And in some cases, at least one case, there's a developer who's looking at a building to convert it from commercial, and in some cases, it's viable existing commercial enterprises. And they want to take this, and over time anyway, convert this to residential. Now, it may sound good from an objective perspective from the city's idea, but when you're talking about the IDA and its purpose and function and job creation and industrial development, it's one thing to say we're going to take this vacant commercial space and perhaps turn it into residential, and even if that's a viable option for support, how do we then reconcile taking what are currently commercial spaces and saying, well, I think it's much more valuable as residential, and saying we're going to, quote unquote, take away some jobs. So I don't know, we'll have to do some research and where that stands. Judy, do you have any thoughts on is there an area in which we're sort of moving toward? I mean, I know that, what's the Bay Road property? I can never remember.
Fowler Square.
Yeah, Fowler Square. I mean, that was in fact supported by the IDA
Warren
and
Washington
is
IDA.
a fully residential project. I mean, I'm guessing that's not the exception anymore, is it? I mean, maybe it's not the rule.
The IDA's statutory authority does not specify housing. So it doesn't specify it specifically. It references commercial projects. So, so there is case law throughout the state where projects that consisted of housing were challenged. The case law and the comptroller's office have issued an opinion that says that housing is acceptable so long as two criteria are met. And it has to be one, that the project prevents economic deterioration in the community in which it is located, and two, that it has to support, expand, etc., job opportunities. So the way the cases have specified that, it's not necessarily the job creation, but the way IDAs have interpreted that has said, well, if we put in X number, by example, if we put in X number of housing units, well, these people will have children. These people will have to put their children in daycare and schools. They'll need to shop for groceries. They'll need to go to dinner. And those types of job creation because of an influx of population. So,
and there's a worker shortage, so it could be easily said, I mean, it has been said for a while by many that what you really have is a people shortage, not a job shortage, right? You've got positions that can't be filled and people that can't move into the area to fill those jobs. It's what Medline is saying, why they're, is it Medline?
Medline.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying we've had these positions open, we've been trying to, we expanded, we built out our facilities, we can't find
Oh, you're talking
employees.
angiodynamics.
Right? We can't fill out these positions, and that there's a shortage of jobs. I mean, it's being said, I don't know if there's a debate there or not, but go ahead.
So I had a meeting a few days ago with Chuck Barton, who chairs the Warren Washington IDA, and Kara is their counsel as well and handled the Fowler Square matter. which I do think is an interesting thing for us to, and we kind of kept track of that through Kara's efforts and through Chuck to make sure that we knew what was going on when that lawsuit and
Yeah, if anyone's not aware, the IDA was sued for that project by the town.
Under the pretense was.
Well,
there was
the initial plans, 10 years ago, those plans were approved as commercial with residential. When they eliminated the commercial, the IDA was already in it up to its eyeballs.
they didn't eliminate it, but they reduced it down to like 5,000
right,
square feet.
I mean, it isn't a clean case.
Right.
In
It's
that,
not,
that
because,
the
yeah,
project
the
was
court's
never meant to be
decision-
all residential.
Right, the court's decision doesn't really address the housing component. It really addresses more of a procedural, position, you know, when should the town have challenged it on, you know, that type of, so it was more of a procedural finding that the court had as opposed to specifically addressing whether or not the housing was, there are cases in New York State that do address housing, large housing projects, and I can send you, you know, there's been articles written about it and things like that. But that, I mean, that is the risk if someone were to challenge it. It hasn't been statutorily. Now, I understand the governor's budget has this considerable amount of money for housing this year, as I've been told. So I don't know if that is something where they're also looking to say, hey, maybe the IDAs can help in this. That, I mean, that's above my head.
Right, exactly.
So there are a lot of other IDAs all across the state that are doing this, and some of them are doing projects that are 100% housing with no commercial. And we could look at those. Albany, I can't remember what they call themselves, but it's a different name. But we could look at that if you wanted, is for some examples. And I think that would be a good thing for us to do. I've actually personally in my business world, my business life have had projects that have gone through an IDA and have been successful. So this has been going on for some time. There are other IDAs that have been doing this. One of the things that I would recommend that we do is, if we want to go down this path, I would recommend we come up with some policies that we want followed by the project related to the housing component. And some of it might relate to design. For example, square footage of the apartments, if I assume they're apartments, square footage, minimums and maximums. The state does have recommendations on that. They have design guidelines. There are certain aspects of the state design guidelines that we could adopt. Not a lot of them, but maybe 4 or 5. We would adopt. We could go through that, come back to the board with some ideas of some of those things. I don't think we want it to be overly restrictive, but if you're going to do this, then do we want to give some recommendations?
Well, one of the questions too is, you know, how much, we have that application in it somewhere, okay, our IDA application. How much of that is boilerplate and how much of that is like, that's it? And the reason I mention this is because, you know, it has, for instance, what is your, you know, how many jobs are going to be created from this?
Well, that's,
you know, now
That application is the recommendation.
Right, that's our,
the state.
So I mean, to what extent, if you say 0, technically,
well,
in the same way that when you got to, for instance, the hot water that the Washington.
Well, if we're gonna
well, then we have to justify accepting that application with that knowledge, and that's why I would like to have some sort of statement as to how long the property has been available for development, what it have attempts for commercial development ever been made. You know, that housing is not our primary goal. Right. Our primary goal should be to develop working, jobs here. That we should not look to be a bedroom community for other communities that supply
Although
jobs.
it was brought up to me by one of the developers, and we were just spitballing, so I don't know where they were going with it, but they said, well, what if we designed this building such that it was, and perhaps marketed it, as a remote workers paradise, right? You know, so you too should bring your job up from Westchester County and come and live here, and we'll have a
We get nothing
room
out
like
of
this where, you know, you could have meetings with your clients, and, you know, you could go and do work if you need to separately, but you just live in the other part of the building. We just have this sort of collective space that all of you remote workers who are bringing your jobs here.
If we had a work smart space built into a residential space, then I agree with you, because then those tax dollars from the hours spent working there come to New York.
Right.
But if it is just remote workers from Florida sitting here in the summer months, Florida still gets those tax dollars, not New York. Okay? It's only if the work is actually generated here, not Florida work being done here. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
So if we
Does that apply to
Company has
the
to be paid
LLC or whoever it is?
that applies to, that's tax
But I
law.
mean, would that be formulated here? I mean, that was one of the big things, of course, about, you know, we've had this huge influx from a state perspective. We've had a huge number of jobs of corporate creation.
Right.
We don't know how many of those are, you know, I just bought a house on Lake George and I've turned it into a
But corporate
corporation.
creation here is great.
But we
Whatever-
don't fit the criteria you're talking about, which is now the product is being generated here.
Well,
Well,
we
that-
could develop a policy that says that we would agree to a pilot if,
You know,
if the work.
Just 2 quick
Could
points
you
on
state
that.
it's a New
So-
York State, has to be New York State?
well,
Business?
no, it doesn't. It's just that, say for example, you know, we had a pod of people who were sent to Chicago to, okay, Kmere. Kmere is based here. They would send a pod of people to build a paper plant in Georgia, okay? While they're doing the work in Georgia, they have to pay Georgia employment taxes. Kmere has to pay Georgia taxes while they're doing work in Georgia, even though they're a New York State corporation and their home office is here. But if that pot of people went to Georgia and just rented rooms and enjoyed you know, the summer weather in Georgia, but were doing universal work for Kmere. They weren't doing necessarily that plant's work, but whatever. Then those employment taxes are New York's. They're not Georgia's. So it's a very weird thing, but it has become, since everybody's gone remote, a huge HR nightmare trying to track whether you're sitting in Chicago doing Chicago work or whether you're sitting in Chicago doing New York work. Hence the reason, if we had meeting rooms and whatever built into these residences where there's a possibility they do New York work, we would be fulfilling the purpose of IDAs everywhere. We would be creating work in New York. But if we just come here and work from here because we have internet and we have everything that, you know, that you need for, you know, crisis living, we don't get any benefit from that. So I'd like to, if we're going to, my whole long-winded story, but what I would like to fulfill our purpose in that we at least have a checklist of attempts to create New York jobs or Glens Falls jobs, whatever, before we agree to give up that ghost and fund residential. Just so we have a checklist, and just so if it ever comes back to us, we can say, we attempted.
This is why
We attempted, and rather than having an empty, deteriorating asset, we agreed as a secondary, you know, purpose of the IDA to save the building rather than to, you
I
know?
think we should continue to have these conversations, and that you should work on, like you said, some of those things, some changes to the application.
So, well, let me suggest this. What if we formed a short-term committee to work on this?
Right.
It'd be different from these meetings. We would come together and start talking about these things and come up with the list and then come back to the full board. It would take some time, and some discussion,
And some wine.
and some wine. I don't think the meetings would be here.
We would be supporting a local business here with these meetings.
It might be just down the street.
Yes, we might need to support some other job creation.
Creating jobs at Mohan.
But would some people here be willing to serve?
I'd be
on that?
very interested in that. I think you need to be on
I think it's
this.
an important thing because, as I say, what seems to be happening is that everybody has a different sort of unique issue that they want to solve.
Right.
Right? And every one of them, I go, that's a good question. They ask me a question, I go, that's a really good question. And I write that one down, and I don't. And then there's another one that's similar. What if we did this? And then I say, and I find out the answer to that, and then there's some twist on this. And again, it seems to center around, there's this huge two things. One is the mayor implied, there's this huge vacuum of workers, right? And so you say, well, what most of them need, it seems more than anything, is a place to live, right? And if you can't find some affordable place to live, then it's not going to make any difference. I mean, are you creating jobs for them, for angiodynamics, if you create 50 homes that people can live in? At the other side of the coin is that this remote worker issue creates, is that a job created? And again, it depends on how it's defined. But are you creating jobs if you bring people who bring their work with them? And in some ways, even if it's not the employment dollars driven here, how much does that drive an economy like ours? Right? Our
But
economic driver is-
it's a service economy driven if it's just people
Primary
living
service
here.
anyways.
Versus, a production which brings us other levels of
Right,
income.
but the vast majority of our, the cities anyway, revenue is the property taxes and sales taxes. And it goes, so, it's not income taxes we're not getting anything from the job being generated here. It's the guy with the money who goes, or woman who spends it all locally. So, it's just, and of course there's also this huge push from the governor for housing, who realizes this. So, whether this is something that can be modified at the state level, it'd be wonderful if there was some guidance coming.
I spent my day, the last 2 days at the
Well, see, this is the
legislature
thing.
lobbying.
That's
on
what-
housing.
I don't want to just
There's
That's all
there's
anyone's talking about.
right. I was just going to say that the exit from New York is we are New York. We are certainly a prime example of exit from New York because our tax structure is so
Well,
expensive.
that's an odd perversion itself, by the way.
Right.
You hear on two sides, you hear one, everybody's leaving New York, and one, there's no housing for people in New York. Shouldn't those be at odds in with each other?
Sure.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah, and there's some complicated issues there, but we can talk
Right.
about that. So we're gonna form we'll call it a housing committee, and who would like to serve on that? Jane, Jeff, Judy?
Everybody
Anyone
will.
else?
Yeah.
Committee of the whole. We'll put out where we're meeting and at what time.
Whoever
Right.
can come, great.
Right.
So I'm.
White or red?
What-
Right.
Well, maybe some.
Right.
Foamy.
Yeah, right. That'd be worse.
I'm gonna suggest before we meet, and Jeff, I can help you to do this, that we approach, let's try to find at least 3 other IDAs that are already doing this to see what their policies are.
Right.
And I think Albany is one, City of Utica is another one, and I'll come up with a third, and I'll talk to you about.
No, there's quite a few IDAs that have an actual housing policy in their UTAP, and a lot of them have opted to kind of judge them with like a point system. So they get a certain number of points for having this and having that and and then based on the points that they've accumulated, then they fit into whatever sort of
Yes, yeah.
benefits that
So
the IDA
that's
is
good.
willing to
Somebody's
offer.
done this for us.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of them that have significant, lengthy policies. You can also add an addendum to the application. If you're applying for housing,
You fill out
then you
pages
fill out this
22 and
additional
23, yeah.
crap. I mean, I understand what you're saying. A lot of it's not going to apply,
Yeah,
but
because, right.
that is the application that it's been recommended by the.
So we could do that and just do an addendum and say, and whatever this policy is, we'll direct what that addendum is.
Right. Yeah.
So let's just talk after this today, and maybe give me some ideas, and we'll go and we'll get those policies and then we'll call the meeting.
Do our homework, okay.
All right, we'll do the homework first. All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you all.
One other thing I wanted to mention,
Oh,
I
go
just got
ahead.
notification that we did receive our bond allocation for this year, which is $304,100.
Oh, nice.
So that's another quiver in our.
Okay. Very
quiver in
good.
our
So
arrow.
we have some bond allocation.
Yeah.
Arrow in our quiver. yeah.
Two on our airline.
And that comes from the state, and I think the division of the budget announces that, or, okay, excellent. Okay. So let's go to, any questions, any follow-up on any of that? I'm gonna go into the meeting minutes and whatnot, the reports. So, we've got the, meeting, minutes from the, regular board meeting held on January 11th. Any comments or questions or changes to that? There being none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved?
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the minutes are passed. Thank you. So we have, as I mentioned, Mark is away. There is a financial report that Mark did put together for the month ending January 31, 2024. Jeff, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add to
No,
that,
there's
but
nothing, there's nothing.
I don't think there's anything of any significance here other than the bills that we paid last month. There being no questions on that, is there a motion to approve the financial report as presented?
So moved?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? There being none, the financial report is approved. The payment of bills for this month is are outlined in Schedule A. We have Mark Toomey, $504.90. Fitzgerald, Morris, and Baker, two different bills, one for $448, the second one for $240. And then we have a payment due to the Greater Glens Falls LDC. Jeff, would you just cover that quickly?
Yeah, just so you know, as you might remember when we, I guess at the beginning of last year, we had gotten rid of the payroll service that we were using for Mark because the cost of that seemed onerous. And he's just started billing the agencies. To simplify things, rather than having each agency paying Mark separately every month, we simply had the LDC was paying, since they were paying the lion's share, they were paying Mark's full freight each month, with the idea that we would then settle up at the end of the year. So basically, this 4,000 represents the IDA's version, or a portion of the money that was allocated for Mark's time for last year.
So there's a written statement that covers and explains that there are connected to that check report, and so that's there. Any questions or comments on any of these? There being none, is there approval to pay the bills on Schedule A as presented?
So moved?
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? There being none, the motion is paid and the bills will be paid. Checks will be signed before we leave here today. Any other reports, Jeff, that we need? Or you wanna
No,
get
it's in
into-
the other business down further below, so I'll get to that when we get to it.
Very good. Oh, gotcha, we'll do it as other business. Project reports, any update on Market Square and Market Center and?
Yeah,
Or should
Market.
should we just walk over there and see?
Yeah, well, yeah, no, it's a little, it's encouraging to see what they're doing over at Market Center. With respect to next door, Benaccio hired not too long ago a new fellow who I haven't quite met yet. I was planning to get together with him earlier this week, but that didn't make much sense. His name is Steve Liccardi, and seems to be a pretty knowledgeable guy. Seems pretty organized. He's trying to get a lot of the documentation together that we've had sort of lingering for the last year and a half or so. One thing that he did mention, he had, in looking at the support, the tax support that we had provided for them, right, for Market Square Phase 1 back in June of 2022, it looks like some of that stuff needs to be modified. Right, for instance, when we gave them the sales tax rebate, you know, for the construction project, we extended it from, May or April of 2022, all the way until the end of 2023.
Right.
So,
That far.
so the period in which the sales tax rebate was valid has expired, and so we're gonna have to get that document modified. I'm planning to meet with him. I'm gonna have lunch with him in the next week or two. I'm guessing there's other things that are in there that have to be sort of modified as well. So they're not asking for any fundamental changes in the document, but we're gonna have to revisit that, and I assume by next month. And assuming that the time frame is what it is for the HCR tax credit project, which sounds, I haven't heard anything to the contrary that make us less optimistic than we have been. But if that happens, then I think what they're trying to do is they want to make sure that nothing is held up after dragging and dragging and dragging. We don't want to say, okay, now we have to go deal with all these things that we could have done for the last 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 months.
Years.
Right. Yeah. Say years. It hasn't been 2 years yet. It's only been up to 2. So
This feels like 7 or 8 years.
yeah, so that's pretty much where we are with that. And we're still, one of the things I also wanted to talk about was, of course, we've been mentioning this issue of the work that needs to be done over at the incubator. But again, I'm still planning to sit down with them. They've just sent me a document. I'll send it over to you. They've sent me sort of a checklist of things they want to sort of pay attention to, or at least things that are lingering or open or undefined or.
And Libby requested a call with me tomorrow afternoon, so I'll update you.
Yeah, so I think they are, they seem to be genuinely, spooling up in a way that's very encouraging.
When you meet with him, I would encourage you, I know that they've already given you a copy of the application they submitted for that, called a tax credit application. But I would ask him if there've been any changes since he sent that to you, and if the agency has raised any issues with them while it's under review, if anything has come up that they're aware of. So that would be good to know.
Like from the application that they sent to now, you mean?
Right, so
If during review they raised issues.
Yeah, so they submitted an application to the state in early December. Has the state called them in for an interview or raised any issues? Have there been any changes since that application? I know that they haven't made their decisions yet, but sometimes meetings occur and things get changed. And if there are, he should let you know if what that is.
When is that decision supposed to be made?
They don't announce that.
Whenever they want.
Good question.
Our guess would be March, April.
Yeah.
It used to be February, March. Now it's
Kinda
March,
like the
April.
budget. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, there was and I don't know if this was statewide, but I do know that in the Capital District anyway, there was a substantial decrease in the number of applicants from what they had last year.
Statewide, they only had 65 applicants and they used to get 120.
So you think they should be done in half the time?
One would think.
That's true.
You probably don't want to mention that to them.
Yes, exactly. We call and ask them why.
Good idea.
All the workers left, but they didn't have a place.
That's right.
But there is a lot of activity over on South Street with Market Center, and so if you guys drive by, it's good to see.
Yes.
And-
Is he on the foundation yet?
They're just starting to.
They've got
The pilings or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. The biggest thing holding us up now is issues with the utilities. They've been rearranged. That whole block down there is sort of an odd mishmash of what's where, and there's all sorts of things in the ground, and they're digging up, and the people who are supposed to be doing the stuff to the street are saying, well, there's a good chance now they think there's trolley tracks in South Street.
There is.
That they thought, that are supposed to have been taken out.
That's right. Oh, no, they just went over them.
Yeah.
They went over the top of them. They buried them.
They're historic. We gotta keep them.
That would be a whole new business we could get into. Trolleys. We could get into trolleys. Right.
Bringing them back.
Right, exactly. San Francisco East.
Mention that.
Right.
The state of the city.
Don't you already have trolleys?
Yeah.
We'll give those to CDTA.
Wait, do we know that definitively that they're still there? Because the
Oh, I mean, if you've lived here long enough, you always knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
they
don't
never
know.
told-
No, do I have, no. I've just always been raised with that you know, yeah, Mr. McPhillips always talked about it. Yeah, it's just
Every
from what I
time,
knew.
every time we dig up a sewer like we did for Park and Elm, we're going through the history of Glens Falls. You hit the trolleys,
Yeah.
then you hit brick,
Yeah.
then you hit, you know, the dirt, and then you hit,
Packed
in front of many of the buildings, in our main downtown have these, great caverns where you would, where all of your supplies would be delivered through, so they never went through the front door.
Right.
They would open up these
go
big, like
underneath.
dumb waiters.
Right.
And they're still there. So,
Just covered
and
over
so, yeah,
bury
then
it.
some aren't covered over at all. They're just there, and the sewer line runs through them, and everything.
Don't wanna be
it's,
delivering through
it's
that.
all there. We come upon them quite often.
Right.
It's, if you look, it's amazing.
The economic decision made at the time in 1930 was to not bother to fill it, just go through it.
Yep.
You know, you can see the economic decisions as, it's the layers. It's interesting.
Yeah.
My council member has been covering the historical issues on Facebook of Glens Falls for some time. Should we ask him to cover this?
Yeah.
Would like a special?
Yes, I think we should.
I think we should
Call
bring it
him
to
in.
him and
Yeah.
call him.
With our
Well,
luck,
it's-
really uncover something historical.
Right, exactly. After stop work.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's funny because, you know, the conversation and all the construction people meet every 2 weeks over at the library and go over all the different issues they have. And one of the most recent one was in the street, you know, when you're trying to get to the sewer line, right? You say, okay, well, we have to dig and find out where the sewer line is. And then the idea is that we know where the sewer line is down here, and here's where we're starting, so we want to trench this way so we can create the decline that you have to get where the water's going to go. And then they go, well, here's the problem. We really need to go back this way, because if you go this way, you might find out when you get here there's something in the way. And then, oh, no, you need to go up above it. Well, then you have to go all the way back and say we need to start all over from how this, you know, decline works, because at the end we found that there was some utility thing or whatever in the way, and we need to raise the whole thing up 5 inches. And they go, well, that means everything you did here was obsolete, it has to be redone. I mean, it's just it's a
Yikes.
interesting challenge.
Yeah, you're gonna get more of that. We got it on Dix Avenue. We found a water main we didn't know existed.
Yep.
We found 2 walls that had no idea where they came from. They crossed Dix Avenue, literally stone walls.
Gophers.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's not,
Not.
because you're all of
Yeah.
a sudden you're
Sure.
replacing a whole bunch more
And
pipes. you
it's
didn't
very
know.
expensive.
Yeah.
The
Very
housing
expensive.
authority
You
has to
go,
go
gee,
through
I
that.
think we need a
And
GIS
it
person.
became
Right? 'Cause
Yeah.
you're pulling out
expensive.
old plastic muslin,
Yeah.
or wax muslin maps.
Yeah. To try and figure out. Yeah. Okay. So
That's all. That's it for
Okay.
that.
All right. Any questions? There being none. So under other business, so we did our audit last year with the Bonadeo Group. It was rather costly. And for both the IDA and the CDC, given that we have not had a lot of business and there has not been a lot of transactions, we decided that we would look around to see if we could get a firm that was maybe a little bit less expensive, but would provide the same services. And the Urban Renewal Agency last year used a combined team of Anderson Advisory and Lutz, Selig, and Zaranda. And so Jeff has met with them, and they've made us an offer that is rather favorable in terms of cost. And so, Jeff, do you want to get into that?
Yeah.
We'd like to approve that if people are agreeable.
Yeah, and you know, obviously we want to do our due diligence and help that they'd already done the urban renewal thing, and we're sort of familiar with this. That all sort of came about when Mayor Holland approached Gene Lapper about the possibility of getting that for urban renewal, which was being sort of renovated or reclaimed from the ashes. So, you know, a lot of the things we had to look at that we alluded to earlier in this meeting, you know, whether or not we had a multi-year contract with Bonadeo, which we did not. And it stipulates pretty clearly in their letter of engagement from last year that their services ended at the end of the audit. We wanted to double check to make sure that there were no policies or procedures that we were violating. And as Kara will verify, you know, I did run through those, and for procurement of professional services, we don't have any requirements at all to, you can use whoever you want, essentially. You don't even need to go to bid. They do require a couple of bids, you don't have to go out to bid, you do want to get some.
Couple of proposals.
Some proposals, which of course was why we were going to them in the first place, because we already had a proposal that we were not terribly pleased with. So I did meet with Gene and with Mary McCreel again, who's a partner in Zilligan Zoronda. They're based down in Latham, by the way, so they're another, and just if you're not familiar with them, they're one of the larger, not as big as Bonadeo. I think I was looking through the Albany Business Review, and I think they're ranked as the number 8 firm, CPA firm in the region.
They're based out of Rochester. They have an office in Albany, but Bonadeo's started in Rochester.
Well, at least that's maybe this is just their local presence, but I think they've got a couple dozen, accountants. But I think Bonadeo was listed as 4th, and they were listed as 7th or 8th.
Yeah,
or something
they
like
bought
that.
a firm in Albany, and
But certainly they have the chops to do this. It's not as if they're not
Right.
stepping
Yeah.
outside their comfort zone to do this. So the crux of all this is that they're willing to do this for a rate not exceeding $5,000. Now, if you'll remember, we were looking at $7,500 from Bonadeo, and that's for each agency. So we're talking about the CDC as well. So we're looking at saving a third on each of them. And there's also a possibility, I don't know this and I don't want to make a claim for it, but there's a decent possibility based on how onerous the audit was last year that our CFO's time we might save him some time too, and thus the agency a little bit of money. Although there's going to be obviously yet another transition that hopefully will be a one-time thing. The one issue is that we will have to get 2 different letters of engagement. Anderson Advisory, Gene Lapper's firm, doesn't have all the, they can't do I think they call them attest services, which are some of the checks that the audit actually process does, which is why she partners with LSC. So she would be preparing the accounting records with Mark. She is local, of course, and then LSZ would be providing these attest services. So we would have 2 different letters of engagement for each agency. So we'd have 2 different letters of engagement for each agency, but they would total this amount. They would break up however they want to do it. It'll end up being the $5,000.
And that's 5 for each agency.
$5,000 for each agency, the CDC and the IDA.
so Jeff has prepared a memo that will be attached to the minutes that covers all of this, so that he has looked through all those procedures and that it's consistent. If we do approve this, it's consistent with what those are. And if we do vote yes, then we'll get those audit engagement letters signed today, and the audit would start pretty much right away.
Almost immediately.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So any questions about that? Any comments? There being none, is there a motion to approve the audit engagement as presented by Jeff?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? There being none, the motion is approved and the engagement letters will be signed. Okay, any other business to become before the IDA?
I just have one last question. Is the IDA ever funded? I've been speaking with Christine Duffy at SUNY Adirondack about helping us as we start to develop a business plan for the market center. So I know that we're going to need students to help us run this, maybe as part of their coursework, and she has said that they would love to work with the city in helping us that way, but they also, almost all that they do now are paid internships. So since that's building jobs, building the potential of somebody getting real life work experiences, that's something that the IDA could help the city with if we had a plan such as that.
In our purview
Probably LDC.
to actually employ people?
To not employ them, but to give us money that we could help employ those people.
Well, I mean, that's
Probably-
right.
Probably the
But you're
LDC, I
saying
would
as a
say, more
grant?
so than the IDA.
Yeah, maybe the LDC.
The LDC instead of the IDA.
And or we
I
could,
just meant it's a job creator, right? This is something that's getting people their education so that they can work in that field. It's real life experience, right? It's
Yeah,
called.
just be
if we
listening.
could look at the state and see if they have any grant funds that could maybe even cover that.
As well.
See?
Okay. didn't know if that was an IDA thing, and that's what the question is, to have your thoughts as we look at that. Okay?
All right. There being no other business to come before the IDA, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting today?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I'm opening up the Glens Civic Development Corporation. It is our February board meeting. We have a full quorum and our staff are here. There are a few administrative reports for us to do. I'm not going to do a CEO report. It's basically, we're really meeting because of the audit. And so, but we do have the meeting minutes from the December 14th meeting when we last met. And those are attached. Any comments or changes? There being none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are passed. Thank you. There's a financial report for the first month ending January 31, 2024, with basically no activity. Is there, well, I take that back. There was some activity where we moved some funds to cover, I think, costs related to year-end stuff. Any questions or comments on the financial report? There being none, is there a motion to accept the report as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is passed. Financial report is accepted. Thank you. So for the annual audit for fiscal year 2023, we are recommending the same team that we just selected for the IDA. And again, Jeff will have a memo that will be attached to the minutes that will explain the process that he went through to make sure that we're in compliance with all our policies and rules. And so, any questions or comments on that? There being none, is there a motion to approve the audit engagement with Anderson and Lutz?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? There being none, the motion is approved and the engagement letter will be signed. We do hope to have all the audits done by or before March 28th, and hopefully in sufficient time to get them out to everyone so you can see them before we meet. No need for other business and no need for executive session unless people have comments or questions. There being none, I call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you, either to IDA or Urban Renewal, whichever you want to do.
Let's do the, you mean the LDC?
No, yes,
I'm
that's
sorry,
what you mean.
LDC.
Right.
Yes.
But if we do the urban renewal, it's just the engagement letter also?
Well, no, urban renewal, the only thing is the approval of Tim as a chair signer. Apparently, we haven't done that process yet. So to make sure, I'll get into it when we
Okay,
actually
I
open
just
that
thought it would
meeting.
be quick, so
It will
so
be.
you
Sure.
just
It
pick
will
whichever
be.
one you want to do. Never mind.
Yeah.
I remove my suggestion.
There we go. So let's open up the Glens Falls Urban Renewal Agency. Let's see, we'll call the meeting to order. We have our quorum. Thank you for attending. And we, administrative reports and approvals. Pat, well, the first thing is to approve the minutes held on December 14th, 2023. Are there any questions, comments on those minutes? Not hearing any. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of December 14th, 2023?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or nay? Abstentions? So,
No.
none. So, and then the financial report in front of you is a 1 month ending January 31st, 2024.
It's as exciting as the CDC.
Very exciting.
Any questions about the financial report? Not hearing any, do we have a motion to approve the financial report ending January 31st?
I will move that.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And payment of bills, no Schedule A really, Pat?
Nope, no bills to pay for this month.
No bills.
No.
It'll make a very exciting financial report next month.
That's true. Next time we meet.
So do we have a motion to approve the no Schedule A? Do we have a motion?
We don't,
we
yeah,
need to.
we don't probably need to. There's no real action.
There's no approval of no action. Let's see, then Tim Larson is our signer for the bank account. It's the whopping activity that we've got.
Right, so.
I fully approve Tim's appointment.
I appreciate your vote of confidence.
Let the record show.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Yes.
And second? All in favor?
Aye.
That's it. No. Nay, no.
Right.
Let's see. I don't believe we have any other business in front of us. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And we are
Well
adjourned.
done.
All right.
4 minutes.
So, hey, would have been less without the jokes.
Sorry.
No, me too.
Much more fun with the jokes.
Let us open the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation meeting. We still have a quorum. Thank you for the key staff and advisors. And we'll start with our CEO report, Pat.
So I'm not sure if it was mentioned earlier because I had a child that had to go to school. Terrible. But anyway, like the IDA and all the other agencies, the plan is to have the annual meeting for the LDC along with the others on the March 28th at 8 a.m. Make sure to bring your coffee. So the second thing I wanted to just kind of mention is the fact that the mayor and I have an appointment next week with Megan Bowen at Glens Falls National to finally close that payroll account and transfer the $254.17 into the main account. And then the third item is just that we signed, the chairman, signed the engagement letter for the Bonadio Group for the LDC to do the 2023 audit. So that work has already begun. Mark has torn out only about a third of his hair this year, so that's good. Trying to get all the documents together. It actually, I expect it to go much smoother this year. They expect that they're going to have the final draft of the audit to us a week before our March 28th meeting. So the 20th or 21st. And that's what I have to talk about
All right.
for this piece.
Anybody have any questions about CEO? The vast CEO.
That's right.
All right. Minutes. We have in front of you the January 11th, 2024 minutes. Any changes or corrections? Not hearing any. Do we have a motion to pass the January 11th, 2024, or to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you. And then the financial report, 1 month ending January 30th, 2024. Updates from Art Toomey's notes. You have those notes in front of you.
Yeah, there's, again, the only changes last month were the CEO pay, the legal bills, and I think that's it. So those were the only changes that were included in this financial report.
Any no questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve the January 30th financial report?
So move.
Do we have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then payment of bills. Pat, only notable item?
Yeah, the only really notable item there, we've got the insurance and mark services, and then the Fitzgerald and Morris Baker Firth bills, a couple bills from CT Mail to finish up some of the DRI work. And then the last one is a Barton and Judas. It's $1,000, and that specifically was the LDC needed to catch up on a environmental report that is done yearly for the incubator, the former, whatever it is, the big white building, to get that report to DEC. And so Barton and LaJudas did it for us, took care of it, filed it with this state, and now we're all up to date with the reports that we need for that. So that's the only difference.
And that's going to be an ongoing for the forever.
Yeah, but is it annual? I wasn't sure.
No, it's every, well,
Every-
there's one piece that needs to go in annually, but this report specifically needs to be done, I think it's every 2 or 3 years, I don't remember
yeah.
specifically. It's a review of the environmental conditions, so.
So if that building no longer belongs to the city, that responsibility no longer,
Should shift to the.
I expect that's the case. I have not explored that specifically, but I expect that's the
I
case.
believe it shifts to the subsequent owner.
Yes.
I believe so too. Just, okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions about Schedule A or any comments? And then I don't, we need a vote?
We do.
Motion to pay him.
Vote
Yeah.
to
We want to pay
approve
Kara,
payments?
because she included 4 pens this morning. We're down to 2.
Motion for the payment and the 4 pens. You got Mary's motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. And then the disbursement of grant funds. Pat?
Yeah, that's I suppose I should have changed that title because it's not a disbursement technically at this point. It's actually just an approval of an application, right? So the Adirondack Healing Arts, the woman who owns that, whose name escapes me right now, and that escapes Jeff too. So anyway, she came. Suzanne,
It's, I think it's in the document.
June, yes, right. Came
Good
to
that somebody remembers Suzanne.
came to us about 3 weeks ago and applied for basically it's a 50-50 grant, right? That she wants to expand her healing arts center, which is massage therapy, physical therapy. She's now in the office building there on the corner of Dix and Sagamore. And so her goal is she
Across from Cooper's Cave?
Directly
across from Cooper's
Yeah.
Cave, in the building, in the office building across from Cooper's Cave.
All right.
Suite 2, actually,
Yeah.
if my memory serves me correctly. But she's looking to grow the business. She seems to, she said that she had a significant need. She needs updated tables, which I guess are extraordinarily expensive, and a number of other pieces of equipment, and is expecting to hire 3 more people to do the, I don't know what you'd call it, the therapy.
Healing arts.
The healing arts, right. So she's asked us, and we reviewed, the chairman, the economic development director, and I reviewed, and Jim actually reviewed the application and came to a agreement that we would provide her, if the board agrees, with a $20,000 grant if she spends $40,000. So it's up to $20,000 if she spends up to $40,000.
Once again, just on fixtures, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay.
It's furniture, fixtures, and equipment only.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So, which
Well, that's
is
encouraging.
for us, it's the easiest to track and the easiest to make sure that we've got enough paperwork backup that
Yeah.
that everybody will, that the state and everybody will be happy with that. So what we're asking the board today is to approve the application so that the business owner can go ahead and procure basically and buy all the things that she needs. And then we'll come back when she's provided us with all the receipts. We'll come back and we will let you know that she has provided them and that we're okay with them, and that, you know, and as I said, I don't know that she's going to get to 40, right? She'll probably be closer to 30 based on what her initial kind of application was. But the goal would be up to 40 because based on what her initial thought was that she was going to need. But her initial request was for all of these different things that she wasn't sure she was going to be able to kind of get at this point.
Well, if you need someone to go in there and
Right.
make sure all the equipment's working properly.
Our volunteer.
We volunteer.
And you can walk
Kara,
through.
would you make sure that's in the minutes?
Yeah.
Judy has
On
volunteered
Friday,
to
and, you know,
check it
before
out.
we walk across the street.
Right,
exactly.
and Mary behind.
Okay, got
I thought you were asking, or to offer to help her spend money. I'm looking for a list of, yeah. You should really have a chair here. Great.
So what
Do
we're-
we have a motion to approve?
Yes,
the
yes,
application?
yes. Apparently so.
All in
Right,
favor?
right. Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. She will greatly appreciate that, I'm sure.
No, I think that's encouraging. I
Absolutely.
really love
Right.
hearing that
Me too.
business is
More
expanding.
Well, and
Yeah.
quadrupling
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes.
Right,
It's just
exactly.
her right now.
Exactly. Awesome.
Okay.
For project reports and resolutions, Market Center, Market Square, anything, Jeff?
One thing I just want to mention, relevant to what you were talking about earlier when you were talking about the IDA. The premise from the beginning of the process with Bonaccio has been that the LDC was going to sell these two buildings to Bonaccio, and the city was going to turn around and lease the first floor, the incubator, from Bonaccio for a period of time to make it sort of an appendage to the Market Center. This is a very preliminary thought, but it might be worth thinking about whether or not the lessee, who is the renter? The lessee.
Owner is the lessor.
Okay, there you go. So the lessee,
Oh,
whether or not they.
That's how I do it.
Remember that little mnemonic. So the lessee, whether the lessee should be the LDC rather than the city itself, and one of the reasons might be for what you were talking about, Mayor, which was, are there funding opportunities, grant opportunities, things that the city writ large, might be working with, whether it's SUNY Adirondack or private businesses or community organizations. And so it might behoove the community, if the LDC was actually participating in this, who might have access to some of these things. So it's a conversation.
You're just trying to give me work.
That's why
I'm trying to make sure that all the avenues of opportunity are open.
Are we going to have any
Yeah, no, it makes
issues if
sense.
the
It does.
LDC is the seller and the LDC is the lessee? That would just be my only question on that. In that, would there ever be an argument that we had not actually given up control because when we sold to Bonaccio, because we
Never
leased
become-
back a 50% of the building. So that would be my only, I would,
A question.
your question,
Yeah.
before we get it,
Yeah, I think that we're gonna, engage, with Jim Thatcher and start to write up the potential job, or a business plan, and then bring it back to you and let you look at it, and that can help with those decisions, and you can find out too if there's any legal problems with it. We gotta, whoever is the lessee, where the object needs to be to break even as quickly as it can, right? To not stay in, we don't wanna be, neither the city nor the LDC wanna be in a long-term business. But there tends, right now, when you were saying that, Jeff, you said whether it be SUNY Adirondack or the businesses and I think "and" is the key thing here. I think it needs to be a collaborative effort between all these organizations. I think SUNY Adirondack is very interested in using the experiences of a market and of a wayfinding, right? We want this to be a hub where people can go and learn about any business in Glens Falls and be pushed back out into the community. We also have many businesses that will be able to grow by the use of our commercial kitchen. I didn't know that until I talked to Christine Duffy.
Oh, yeah.
They've had to turn many people that wanted to use their commercial kitchen down because one that it's really not a favorite idea of her
Her
the
chef.
people running her chef running
Right,
the
doesn't
kitchen.
like other people
Doesn't
messing,
want people
right.
in
And he's
there,
right.
Damn, it's right, yeah,
even when they're not using it, right?
Well,
And
because
they're-
they use it on the weekend, and then he comes in with classes on Monday, and it's usually trashed.
Right.
And I don't blame him.
No.
He has no time to prep, and his class loses time.
That's
But
correct.
you
wrong.
could be advising us on things we could do.
And he would
And
be
he-
very
and he-
happy to do
he's a good
that.
guy. Yeah.
Because there's things that we should do to prevent damage to the equipment.
Oh,
by
absolutely.
pers-
They
Yes.
could help us, and they could also help us manage it. Like, it's not, they would be happy to be in and involved in many ways, especially if it's our kitchen and not his. Like, a lot of his thing is it's not necessarily that they have, but that they might, and it's just a pain, and
Oh, I
why
know they
do
have.
that? If it's a teaching kitchen,
Right.
right? That's not in his job description necessarily. But this could be an opportunity for them to work with us to help small businesses that I happen to know my own cousin has a pie baking business, but doesn't offer certain kinds of pies because she has a commercial grade kitchen, but she doesn't have a certified by New York State
Right.
commercial kitchen.
Right.
So she can't offer those pies in ways where she could. I think there are many, and so there's many opportunities for this to be a true resource for the community. And the way to do that is to not have one entity burdened by it, right? Whether it be again the LDC or the city of Glens Falls, that isn't really relevant to me right now. But
Well-
it's one we would want you thinking about it. How do we work together to
Well,
make this
it is
I
only
think
to the
he could
extent.
advise us on what equipment to buy, what equipment not to buy.
Right,
She
all
would
that
be
stuff, yeah.
all of that.
Good
He would
community-
be-
good
Well,
community
it,
effort.
it is relevant only to the extent that there are funding opportunities
Right.
that are available to the LDC. Which
Ah,
the state can
Right,
get.
that was his point.
This
I
whole
just want to make sure we don't get
came
into
up when we
trouble.
were looking for
Right.
when you were, Mayor, we were talking about with Jim Thatcher and me about the business plan. And one of the first things you do is you go and look at the CFA. There might be other opportunities, and then you see, most of Empire State Development's programs. I mean, obviously we have some, but many of them, especially when they're business development, marketing related, right, like developing a business plan, are not geared towards cities because cities don't really have business plans. But the LEC does. So there's just, whether that was the long-term arrangement or not, the fact of the matter is that the LDC could certainly play a short and medium term, perhaps a long term. That's the point.
Okay, so,
So you'll
We'll
be
figure it out.
hearing more from us soon.
Good.
In ways to ask you if you can help us move forward with these things.
Okay.
Time is now of the essence, right?
Yeah.
So it'll become more of the essence in April.
March or April.
But yeah,
Or whatever.
know it's coming.
Right.
Know we're working on it.
Right.
Okay. Excited, and we will be forming a committee, and so you might. I hadn't thought of the wine, but maybe asking.
Bill, after the meeting last month, you said start thinking about it. I did some fast and dirty Googling. There are some places doing some very interesting things with commercial community kitchens. One place had a monthly cultural event and they picked a theme, but they brought in food, they brought in art, they brought in entertainment that kind of tied, like the entire
Local.
community came
All
in
local.
to do this.
It's awesome.
And it became like this go-to thing for the entire city to go to on this one day a month.
Thanks.
There's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, please, and send me anything you get, and again, we're gonna form a committee and start meeting and talking about this regularly. I get more excited about it every time, and it's funny, so did Christine Duffy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
This is a good idea for her, and we have other community members that are trying to think of whether they're not using this terminology about wayfinding, but they're using, what's the thing that she uses? There's a great perception that the businesses could all have a place where they have a few things that you go and learn about. You might buy Me Max beer
Carrying place.
from this place. What'd she call
What's
it?
the great carrying place?
Great Caring Place, or
It's a
like
Native American
It's a
restaurant.
Native
community
American
closet, right?
phrase, yeah.
Right. And so I mean, this really could become an incubator building,
Yeah. wouldn't
Right.
that be-
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
Come right back around and find
Yeah,
yourself.
as soon as we stop using the term, we'll have to re.
Right, exactly.
That's great. So,
Okay.
that is all I, oh, Jeff, sorry.
No, that's all I had.
That's it?
Yeah, so we're done.
We are, I don't think we need to go into executive session. If nobody else has any other business, we would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second? Anybody? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.